A voice comes floating on the air, reminding me of mother's prayer. I see her by her old armchair, my mother dear, in humble prayer. There you go. Yeah.
That's what you're saying at the drop-in.
You know that one?
I've never heard that one either.
You've never heard it?
No?
Oh, dear.
Well, how old is it?
Well, I like, I think maybe to sing the most. You know, I never sang one. My wife, she's a better singer than me, and I wouldn't dare spoil the singing, you know. But anyway, when I got to live alone, I couldn't talk to myself. People would say he's crazy, but they can't stop me singing, you know.
No.
They don't sound. So I want to sing the song I like to sing. We'll find a perfect peace where joys they never cease. Out there beneath the kindly skies, we'll build a sweet little nest somewhere in the west and let the rest of the world go by.
You're in good voice today. This most attractive farmhouse on the Stone Line, Lot 7, Concession 4, is known as the Whittaker Farm. Mr. Richard Whittaker Sr. paid $5 to acquire the Crown deed in 1851. These 100 acres were completely covered by bush. The early Whittaker family of 7 lived in a log house until 1912, when this brick house was built.
And brother next to me mixed the mortar. And I carried the brick. And Big Dan McDonald laid the brick on the outside. And I was just out of school at that particular time. But I could handle a hut full of brick. When they built this house, when we built it, they didn't have built-in cupboards. And we just put in a big cupboard here, an old big cupboard. When my wife come on the thing, she wanted a built-in cupboard. Now we didn't have plywood or anything, and I got that basswood cut back in the bush and dried and planed, and the man was to come. We had moved out the old cupboard and everything, and the man was to come to build the cupboard, and he never came. And I said, Mom, I'll build that cupboard. And I built that cupboard that night. Granary. And that's the elevator for putting the hay up in the barn there. You see it behind that one. And those are the self-feeders back there. And you see the cattle in the yard. And once you put grain in them, you got to take them out with an elevator because they open at the bottom. And that's an elevator there bringing it out to put in the grinder. Well, I'll just tell you about our school. We lived close to the school. And so we went home for what you call dinner on the farm at noon, because we're the closest to the school. And this particular day, you know, we had no bathrooms then, nor bathtubs in the country, but we had a pond near the school where we boys used to go to swim. And out come the sun in May, one recess before noon, and it was pretty warm sun, so we thought we'd go for a swim to this pond that was close to the school. And we'd only have a few minutes to swim and get back to the school. So, yes, we went, and we never wore bathing suits because we all boys together. So when I went home for dinner that day, I said, we were all sitting around the table, maybe a half a dozen of us. I said, I was in for a swim today. Father said, what did you say? I was in for a swim today. He said there was over an inch of ice on the water trough last night. Yeah. So that is one event that took place. But we didn't know there was ice, nor said nothing about it. Another day, the teacher boarded at the next house that was close to the school. And when she was home for lunch, or dinner, we got cedar bark and made cigarettes in the school. And we all got smoking. And scribbler paper was pretty good, but the best paper was a sheet out of the Bible, and one of those fine sheets out of the Bible made the best cigarette papers. But anyway, we had the house, the school, full of smoke, and the teachers started to come over the hill to the school. And we had to get the windows all down and the doors open and get fan the smoke out, and all the cigarettes went in the stove. We finally got it pretty well cleared before she got in. As I grew up, we got a new teacher. I quit school, of course. We got a new teacher. And she was pretty dressy and pretty good looking. And there was going to be a concert in Flesherton, and I was going to go to it because there wasn't many things to go to. And I like to have a girlfriend, and I hadn't met this new teacher. She had just arrived a day or two, and I had to call the neighbor woman up. So I called her up and told her that I was going to this concert, and I'd like to take the new teacher with me, but she doesn't know anything about me, and you'll have to recommend me and see if she would care to go with me. She said, I'll do it. And so she said yes, she would go. So I apologized when I went for her that it wasn't fair to her to have to go with somebody she hadn't met and all that. But later on we went out many times. Yeah, so when I came to the hall, of course, I had some training, and I walked ahead up the aisle and picked the seat and let the lady go in, and my sister was there, and she didn't know I was bringing her in there. He said, there's my brother, and he has the new teacher already. Of 5 boys and 4 girls. And I was the youngest son. And so my father always had about 2 boys to help him on the farm, plowing and doing chores. I helped my mother because we had no convenience. And I done the churning, and I carried the water, and I got in the wood and the kindling and the garden, dig the potatoes and for dinner and so on. Well, anyway, the time come when all the boys left and I had to go to the barn. Because father comes first, the work must go on. And I guess I wasn't as good as the brother ahead of me because he liked in the barn cleaning the stables and the horses. But I hadn't got used to that kind of thing, so I went kind of slow. So I don't think father thought so much of me as he did of the other boys. But of course he's only had two when he had the other one, but I'm on my own. And so I had to carry the load. And I was sent to help the neighbors cut wood, bud wood just when I was out of school. And threshing, I carried the boxes at the threshing because that took a good man to do that, and they couldn't kick on me being a young fella or anything, and I could carry those boxes. And so that I got probably the hard end of the work. But in the end, perhaps I was the best, I believe the best plower and the best man to sow grain. And that was one thing that father did believe in me. He would have nothing to do with the sowing or allow anybody else to. I will sow it because he knows what he's sowing and he knows how to sow. So I done all the sowing, and there'd be no misses or anything like that. But outside of that, I don't think he ever praised me or anything. But I was my mother's boy. My father was supposed to be probably maybe the best man to run machinery and look after horses of the neighbors. Whenever they had a sick horse, they sometimes sent for him. And he had bought the first binder in partners, and the other fellow couldn't drive it, so he had to go and cut the grain for the other fellow with after he cut his. So I got it in my head that father was a great man with machinery and horses. But he had no education. And now when I think of it, he didn't know much about horses, nor he didn't know much about machinery. Because with the learning I had, I was a specialist, probably with farm machinery. I could make any binder work if it wasn't tying the sheaves or whatever it was. So when I took over the farm, the binder was wore out, and so I had no much money, and I was at an auction, and there was a binder wasn't brought out at the sale but left in the barn, and they went in to sell it, and the paint was on it, and they didn't seem to bid on it, and I bought the binder. There was just one fellow made. The binder had good canvases, that's 3 canvases. I bought the binder for $34. And the man told me in 2 days to come and get it out of the barn, out of the room. So I went with the big team of horses I had, and the front bob of the sleigh, and took this binder home, and I asked them, how is it work or what? He says, it's no good. I haven't worked it for 2 years. Is this no good? Well, mister, you come to my place next August when it's harvest time, and I'll show you whether it'll work or not. And you have the picture there of me cutting the field of oats. One of the best field of oats that ever grew in Grey County, and it never missed a sheaf. I was up at the Ceylon one day, and when I was a lad, and they got talking about councils, and the boys said, we're going to run you for the council. And I didn't know much about the council then. And I didn't say no, but they meant business. So when I went home, I told my dad, the boys want me to run for council. Well, if they do, go ahead, they said. So, anyway, yes, I was going to run for council, and the time come for the nomination. And a neighbor a distance away phoned me to come to see him before the nomination. And he said, look, it's no fun to run you and get you beat. We want you to win. And he said, you know, you're pretty young for that job, and they mightn't think you're just level enough for a councillor. He said, we must get you two very old men to nominate you, because that will look better. So I had to agree, because I don't know anything about it. And so I got two old men, one from over this way and one from over that way. And one had a cane, and they walked up in the audience and nominated me. I'm sitting down as sober as a judge in the middle of the audience, and the people thought he must be pretty level, or those old men wouldn't nominate him. You know, there's nothing wrong about them, you know. So I was elected. And my ad in the paper, which was always put in a little square before the election, that you'd save all the money they generally put in, you know, and I bought the top of the Fresh in Advance. And in big letters, as big as the advance letters, let's get out of the mud, vote Whittaker. You know, I told you I had at the polls, didn't I? And because we were in the statute of labor, and that was outdone long ago. So when I went back the second time to run for the council, the old council would have been in, only I interfered the second time that I was elected. Not the second time I was elected, but the second time I run from the farm. And I said, I wouldn't run, but if I don't run, you won't get a chance to vote for the new system, which I'm interested in. And nobody seemed to know anything about the present road system we have today at that time. But I had made a study of it. And of course there was many against it, because those who lived on the highways didn't want it we'll have to build a road for them on the back road. Well, anyway, one fellow from the audience, when I was up on the platform, he said the work will all be done in one place. I said, look, I promise you that everybody that pays taxes will get something on his road. So that settled that for the time. And some that was getting automobiles heard that we might get a snowplow, you see, and I said later when we get ready. So they were interested in it. And I said, yes, if we get a big machine, we'll get a plow, which we did. But I was talking a little over my head because the council, I have the whole council to work against, you understand? And we ordered this machine. But they couldn't fill the orders. They had so many orders for machines. When about 6 or 8 months, I was notified we could get the machine now. But the price had gone up $2,000. That was a lot of money at that time. But when I presented this to the council, one or two of them, no, I won't get it at all. So I said, well, I'm not pleased, I said, with $2,000, but Gunnell Township, a poorer township than we are, they have one ordered, and they'll be glad to get it. The thing, and that was against it, and they'll not likely be any cheaper. Not now, I don't think. And so I got them to agree. Now, I'd like to have a plow for, of course that costs more money. It's all gone this spring, no. Yes, but you know there's a time in the fall when the one part of the road has a whole lot of snow on that you can't get through it, and the rest is bare. It'd be nice to have that plow to open them and let the people shop for Christmas. Finally, I got the plow. And I never said nothing about the wings, but they came with it too, you think. So, from there on, we widened the roads and scraped the stones off them. And the people were so pleased with that. You know, that the road was so smooth and so wide that never got trimmed up like that before. And went over all the roads. So I didn't have much criticism. But when I first took the road superintendent, one fella that was Reedford, he said he won't have a friend in the township next year. Well, I'm happy to tell you today that I can go any place in the township. And they couldn't have been nicer to me, the people. But I didn't say to them, I said, I'm working for you, not for the Department of Highways, I'm working for you. So that made them feel better. And Vandeleur was a very strong one against the new system. And I said to them recently, to one or two, how do you like the road now? You have a paved road to Flesherton and a paved road to Markdale. And when I got it, it was full of mud holes. Now, do you believe in me or do you not? They liked IB, but they didn't like that idea of taking that system from them. About this time, we didn't own an office nor a building. And we got some new councillors in, and they told me to get a piece of land for the building to keep this power grader in, and also we would add an office to the front of it. So I looked all over, and I thought about Ceylon on a corner there, that we could go in two ways, but they wouldn't sell it. And I met the lady that owned this lot where we have the building at the night school, and asked her if she would sell me a piece of land off the place. Her husband had been killed and with a tractor, and she didn't work the place no more. She lived in Ontario. So she didn't know. I said, leave it till next week until more. And she came next week and she agreed to sell me this lot. And so you know where we are, number 10, and we built the building of cement blocks 50 feet square because money was fairly scarce, and they built the office in front. So it done a frontage for both the office and the building. Well, then as time went on, after I was left the road superintendent, they got 2 more machines, and they got trucks. So they have to have a bigger building. And they added, I think, 3 doors to it. And so, of the latest kind. And they invited me to come to the opening to cut the ribbon on the opening of this new building. And which I did, and I spoke to the audience and told them, did you ever notice when anything's done good, it's seldom mentioned, but when there's a bad mistake or anything, it's all over the world in no time. And I said, Mr. Reeve, council and staff, I've come to praise you for the good work you're doing. And this is what they gave me for the year. That's it. I'm going to sing just parts of 3 songs that perhaps I like the best. They're old songs. And one I like very much is Down by the Old Mill Stream. But I'm just going to sing the last verse. The old mill wheel is silent, the mill has fallen down, the old oak tree has withered and lies there on the ground. Your hair has turned to silver, the gold has faded too. But darling, I remember where I first met you. I like that verse. Now, I want to thank a different type. It's not as old, probably. My little girl, you know I love you, and I long for you each day. My little girl, I'm dreaming of you, though you're many miles away. I see the lane down in the wild woods where you promised to be true. My little girl, I know you're waiting, so I'm coming back to you. Now there's another one I liked in the wartime. Not many would be old enough to know. Then go back to your home over the sea, to the land from where you came, whatever be its name. But don't be ungrateful to me if you don't like the stars in Old Glory, if you don't like the red, white, and blue. Then don't act like the cur in the story. Don't bite the hand that's feeding